Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event.
National Public Radio, this is Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is National Public Radio. How do you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Thank you so much. This is Melissa Block with All Things Considered. And do we have Cady Coleman there?
She is here, as well as Paolo Nespoli.
Fantastic. And Scott Kelly, that must be you.
Yes, it is.
Great. Welcome. Thanks so much for talking to me. And Cady, I wonder if I could start with you. I gather that you have brought music with you to the International Space Station. I wanted to ask you what you have with you.
Well, I play the flute on the ground, and it's one of the things I love to do, so I brought my own flute with me. But I also brought some other flutes with me. I have a penny whistle from Paddy Maloney of the Chieftains, and also a very old Irish flute from Matt Malloy of the Chieftains. And I have a flute from Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull. So a pretty well-rounded spectrum, and I am having a great time up here with them.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, how did it come to be that you have those three flutes with you?
Well, so with mine, it makes 4 total, and we get to bring a certain number of things with us to represent, or we just get a certain amount of space to bring stuff. And, one of the things I think that's important to do is to try to share how amazing it is up here and, relate to different groups of people. And I relate to flute players, and I just wanted them to understand what a cool place it was and how many possibilities there were to play music up here on the space station.
Well, what is it like to play the flute and experience weightlessness? Is it easier? Is it harder?
It's just actually really different. I've actually been having the nicest time up in our cupola. It's a module that has windows all the way around, and I just basically float around in there, and a lot of times play with my eyes closed. And what's really funny to me is that I'll suddenly sort of run into something, and something you just had no idea was so close is right there at your nose, which if you're walking around in your living room, it just doesn't happen that way. So it's been pretty neat to just float around and not know quite where you are, but still be creating your own little world with music.
That sounds great. What are the acoustics like up there?
That really depends on the module, and I have to say I've been playing a lot more now that I've found the cupola, which the nicest part about it, besides the view, at least for me, is that nobody can hear me play in there if they're in some other part of the station. In other parts where we have a lot of sort of cloth bags, it absorbs the sound and it's not quite as bright sounding. But I've been trying to play module by module, and they all sound pretty good.
I'm thinking, Colonel Coleman, that it would be a pretty amazing thing for you to have some sort of space ground concert. You playing up there on the space station along with Paddy Maloney and Ian Anderson and Matt Malloy.
We are trying to work some of those things out, and hopefully we will manage to make them happen. The time delay, there's a technical difficulty in that. I'll tell you, the way I usually play is I play with people. I play with a group, and I'm somebody who sort of listens and then does the noodling in the background, and so I like to follow. And so it's a little bit hard for us to all play something at the same time. We're trying to work that part out, but it might be that they send me something to play, and then I send it back down there on film, or we're trying to work out the details. But in any case, I think with their instruments up here, I think I have a lot of flute players up here with me.
Cady Coleman, you have your fellow crew members there with you, Commander Scott Kelly and Paolo Nespoli from the European Space Agency. And I wonder, Scott and Paolo, what you think of Cady's playing. Is this something that makes your time in space even more pleasant?
Well, to be honest with you, she actually, I haven't seen her play very much. The space station is really big, and she's, does it mostly, in her spare time when, at least myself has been in other places. I've heard her a couple of times just now. She was practicing because she has her flute here, and she thought you might ask her, not to put her on the spot or anything, but she was thinking that you might ask her to play. So that's really only the second time I've heard her play.
Well, you're missing out, but you will get to hear her in just a second. Let me turn to Commander Scott Kelly there for a second. Commander Kelly, you are the brother-in-law of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, and I imagine it's been especially hard to be there on the International Space Station and unable to be with your brother, Mark Kelly, and the Congresswoman during this time as she's recovering?
I think it'd be hard to be anywhere, whether it's with them or a place like this. Certainly, being in an isolated environment, presents its own special difficulties. But, we have, a telephone and email, and so there's the ability to communicate. Certainly I'd prefer to be, able to support my brother and Gabby, certainly, and my kids and other friends and family in person, but I understand this is my place and I have a job to do, so I'm getting along fine.
Do you think that you have in any way some different perspective following all of this from where you are, 200 miles above the earth?
Well, if you would have asked me that right when this happened, I probably would have said yes, because the immediate reaction after something like this, you have varying emotions, but one of them is certainly anger. You're very angry that something like this happened to one of your family members. But I think, now after time has passed, I would say, probably not. Certainly, my life up here has changed since the accident. So I guess in some ways, maybe my perspective on things has changed because, where I used to in my spare time, spend time looking out the window and taking pictures of the Earth. Now I spend more of my spare time on the telephone and with email and following the news than I did before this tragedy.
Yes. Well, I know, Cady Coleman, you have your flute. I'm not sure which flute you have there with you, but you have a flute with you. Why don't you tell us which one it is? And I wonder if you would play us out with a song.
Well, I'm from Massachusetts, and I brought my own flute, which was made by a really neat company in Massachusetts. And the song I was going to play is called Blue Nose. It's by a Canadian guy named Stan Rogers, who writes a lot of the things that I love to play. And it's about, an old sailing ship sailing the oceans, being away from home. And that's the kind of perspective you can't help but have when you're up here looking down at the earth and you think about the early explorers. And here we are, more recent explorers, but we all have some things in common. And there are jobs that we have to do far from home. So this is for John McBride, who in our International Space Station branch in the astronaut office is the cornerstone of our branch, and it's his favorite song.
Great. Cady Coleman, a little flute music from space. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm a big NPR fan, so it's a pleasure to talk to you and to share our space station life with folks.
Thanks to everybody there on the International Space Station. Cady Coleman, also Commander Scott Kelly, and astronaut Paolo Nespoli. excuse me, and astronaut Paolo Nespoli. Thanks to all of you, and best of luck with the rest of your mission.
Thanks very much.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the NPR radio portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from KHOU-TV.
Station, this is KHOU-TV. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Thank you. We appreciate you talking with us today. I'm Lisa Lisi with KHOU-TV. And we were just touching base with you, Scott. I was at the press conference when your brother announced he will be flying the next mission. And just wondering how you weighed in on that decision and what kind of advice you gave him.
Well, I mostly listened to, how he felt about it, and which I think is important when you're, trying to, help one of your family members make a decision. There I think it was pretty clear that him flying this flight was the right thing to do for, him personally and in our family situation. I think it was, a pretty clear choice. And once he, discussed it with our management and they met the appropriate, requirements, I think that was clearly the right thing for him to do.
And you would have been, the first brothers in space together, but I know due to delays that's not going to happen. But any thoughts on that? It would have been a historic moment.
Well, it would have been fun for us, but we both have jobs to do, and we understand that. So. It's something I would have liked, but certainly I am not disappointed. And originally, with his original launch date, his mission would have been concluded prior to mine. So it was just really, luck and timing for a while anyway that we were scheduled to fly together. And then, as things work in the shuttle program, we find issues we have to fix, and sometimes those cause delays in the flight schedule, and that's what happened. And completely understandable and not an issue for either of us.
Sure. Your sister-in-law, your brother, put out a Facebook note to everyone that she's doing amazingly well. But wondering how it was for you when you originally heard the news, and how you're balancing work and family concerns, and also the outpouring of support.
Well, like you would imagine, it's pretty shocking to hear that your sister-in-law, your brother's wife, that I'm very close to her. I'm certainly very close to my brother. That originally she was shot, and then soon thereafter. Heard that it was unconfirmed, but she had died. So certainly, really horrible news to hear, in in any situation, whether you're on the space station or anywhere for that matter. Yet multi-part question, but as far as how I dealt with it, I think in whatever spare time I had, spent time on the phone, talking to my brother, my kids, other, family and friends, and also communicating via email and following her recovery and the news as best we can in this isolated environment here on board the International Space Station.
And has the outpouring of support been helpful, I would think?
I'll tell you, it's really been incredible. I've gotten hundreds, if not thousands, of messages. I can't imagine how many my brother and Gabby have received, messages of support from all over the world. So it, really is heartwarming to see that people are concerned about her and, and my brother, and then, a small part, concerned in how I'm doing up here.
I'm wondering, just to switch gears, what do you think of SpaceX? And is it a viable possibility? Is it any better than what NASA may have developed along the way?
Oh, I think it's great, that they've been able to achieve something that only governments have done, and just a few governments have done previously. It's an incredible achievement that they need to be very proud of. I don't know, a lot of the technical details and be able to compare, their SpaceX, their Falcon 9 and the Dragon with, NASA's, what would have been the, NASA version of that with the Constellation program. But, I think, like I said, I think they should be very proud of themselves. And I think, it is definitely a viable program. So I'm excited to see, how far they get and watch them along the way.
And how are the experiments and all the different things you're doing going on the space station? Is there anything interesting that you could talk about in your work that you're all doing up there?
You know, it's incredibly interesting and exciting. The space station is an absolutely amazing place. It is one of the great achievements of mankind, in my opinion. Probably, the hardest, most difficult engineering accomplishment that anyone has ever done. We have 130 different science experiments operating on board at any given time. Right now, we're very busy with visiting cargo vehicles, kind of preparing for when the shuttle finally stops flying. We have a shuttle flight, ULF-5, coming in a couple of weeks. So, between doing the science we're doing and preparing for all these vehicles, we're staying very busy. In my opinion, this whole program is one large science experiment. How to keep people alive and systems operating for long periods of time in an isolated environment. So when the time comes, when we decide to go, back to the moon, onto Mars, or other destinations, we have the knowledge and the engineering capability to do that. So it's really a critical program, and I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary work that you're all doing. Cady, shout out from Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut originally, so hi to Massachusetts. And wondering if you could talk a little bit about your flute playing. Is that something you do in your downtime? And I don't know if you would do a repeat performance for us as you did for NPR.
I love to play mostly with people. That's the biggest difference. Down on the Earth, I almost always play with friends and groups, and they're playing something and I play something in the background, and it's something I do in my spare time. I probably won't change day jobs too soon, and so doing it up here alone is a little bit different. But what I've done is brought actually their music with me, and so I play their music in the background and play along, and just I think up here in it's a big place, and yet there's 6 of us that are here all the time, and one of the ways that you get along is just to be able to create your own world and have a place that you can go to, and for me that's by playing music, and so it's been really nice to play up here.
Would you also be able to play us out? I don't know if that's convenient or not.
Sure.
Thank you to you all. I appreciate it. Wishing you the best.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Appreciate your time. Yes, applause from here too.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Station, this is Houston at ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you, National Public Radio and KHOU TV station. We are now resuming operational audio communications.